The Council Gender Pay Gap report showed that women, on average, occupy higher paid roles than men in the council. And today, here in Donegal, women are among the most educated and indeed independent women in the world, enjoying freedoms and equal status to men. But it wasn't always that way, and there's a new exhibition that has opened at the County Museum in Letterkenny. It's called Mná Na NGall, and it celebrates the women of Donegal from 1922 to the 1980s and how they worked to break down barriers to make the lives of Donegal women better. The assistant curator of the museum is Carr, who joins us now. Caroline, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John. How are you?
Good, good.
The-
Now, sorry?
I'm on the desk here, so just in case I get asked questions, you never know. We have visitors in at the minute, so I'm live on the desk too as well.
All right. So if I hear a bit of chatter in the background, I'll know exactly what it is. That's
Yes.
understandable. Well, listen, the new state, I suppose, in the early part of the 20th century, it was a cold place for most women, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Basically, for the first two brand new governments of the Irish Free State, basically began to erode our rights as women and enshrine them into law along with the influence of the Catholic Church. So from 1922 to 1980, it was a very difficult place to be a woman, and that's why before people correct us about the title of Mná Na NGall, instead of saying why is it not Mná Na NGall, it's Mná Na NGall. It's because basically we were like strangers or foreigners in our own country because we had very little rights as women.
Right. And those rights were being, they're being eroded by the state, as you say, together with the church. And I mean, I'm chatting about moral codes and, no right to divorce and a ban on important contraceptives and other things. Let's roll the clock forward, I suppose, from the early part of the century to as recent in many ways as 1965 and some of the things that a woman couldn't do in Ireland just 60 years ago. And
Well,
yeah.
sorry, so John, like 6 years ago that when you got married, you lost your job. You had to leave your job automatically in the civil service, public service, semi-state companies, banks, and even though it was kind of loosely applied to teaching, but a lot of teachers lost their job as well if they got married, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
which was it was shocking because you were educated, and then you got married, and the men didn't have to leave; just the women had to leave to go home, back to the house and rear the children.
Good point. And I mean, the way the state viewed it was a woman's place was in the home.
Well, in the 1937 Constitution is it does say that we were and our place was in the home.
Mm.
Basically, that's what it was, and that still remains
Also, as
in the
recently,
Constitution.
also as recently as 65, children's allowances were paid only to the father.
Yes, it was only if the father or your husband nominated you to receive the allowance, it was yours. That took another change in the law to amend that as well, which is shocking. That wasn't changed until 1974 Social Welfare Act, so it took a long time.
Also, under Irish law at the time, a married woman had no right to a share in her family home, and in fact, her husband could sell the house and everything in it, or mortgage it without needing her consent
Yeah.
or without her even knowing it.
Yeah, but I don't, you weren't, even if you came into the marriage with, you owned property or you had anything of your financial, once you got married, your husband automatically took ownership of that. And like he could sell you the clothes on your back, he could sell anything without any, recourse because it was the law. You were his property and anything you owned was his and you had no right to it, which is amazing.
Which is amazing, and
Yeah.
yeah, considering what we're chatting about 60 years ago, thereabouts. Also, when it came to work, women weren't paid for doing the exact same job. Women wouldn't be paid the same as a man.
No, not at all. Like, and women were barred from like apprenticeship. Women weren't even entitled when they turned 18. You couldn't sign on the dole either. Men could sign on the dole, but when you were a woman, you couldn't sign on the dole either. So you had no choice but to work and work for less pay, no matter what grade you're in. And it's like that, John, when you were in the civil service, they did offer a thing called a marriage gratuity when you left work, depending on how many years of service and depends how much. And sometimes, it was enough to put a deposit in the house, and people, women were grateful for it. But when the law changed in 73 and 74 for local authorities, when you came back into work, you had to repay the marriage gratuity received with interest. No matter what grade you left in the first place, you went back in on a temporary contract only, and also you went in as the lowest grade possible. So you had to work your way up again, as well as repaying
My
the
goodness.
money, the
Yeah.
marriage gratuity they give you to soften the blow of losing your job in the first place.
So they gave with one hand and they took with two.
They certainly did.
Uh, and when it came to socialising in the 60s, it wasn't illegal for a woman to go into a bar, but it was legal for pub owners to actually refuse them entry, believe it or not.
It was. A lot of people don't realize that yeah, you could go in, but that it was up to the pubs, and like we've heard stories of many pubs refusing women entry or refusing be served women. And that's why lounge bars were created. You see lounges. So lounges were created for separate space for the women. So you wouldn't be up at sitting at the bar ordering drinks or sitting annoying the men to be in the lounge to be served upon. Um, so that's why lounge was created a separate space for
Yeah,
women.
because it wasn't the done thing for women to go in and mix with men. Men were supposed to have their own time and not be bothered.
Yes, and also they wouldn't serve you a pint. So you could be served a glass of whatever your choice of drink was. And that's women's groups in the early 70s then, what they used to do was they used to go in en masse to a pub and order, like you were allowed to be served shorts.
Mm.
So they ordered measures and then they'd order a pint. So then when it was time to pay that, I did knock back all the shorts, and then because they refused to serve the pint, they refused to pay for their order and left. So they would.
Sure,
So that's their form of protest they
yeah.
used to do.
The exhibition as well charts the effects that the mother and baby homes and also the Magdalen laundries had in society. And it features the mother and baby scheme, which was a groundbreaking scheme by Dr. Noel Brown in the 1950s. And the state railed against this as well and kicked back against this.
They did certainly, and poor Noel Brown lost his job over it. And it was a groundbreaking scheme to offer, healthcare for, women and children, and to, lessen the mortality rates and to help women, to help women with their health basically and look after women. But yeah, there was a lot of railback by the church and state on it, and he did actually lose his job.
Yeah.
So he did.
And it
But
was the
the
church.
exhibition, yeah, church and state, it's like
Yeah.
even in 1944 when Tampax was introduced into Ireland, the bishops of Ireland came together and got it banned as well.
Incredible. There's a
So
section as well in this, and that, or Caroline, that features women in politics. And I'm not sure how far we've moved forward because I just see that in the
yeah, the headlines today.
yeah, 23 junior ministers and just 6 of them women, and there was just 3 women who got senior ministries last week. So I'm not sure how far we've moved forward. But anyhow, it took a while for politics in Donegal to see the first woman elected. Two of 1920, there was a total of 42 women elected to local councils around the country. But here in Donegal, it would be another 60 years before there was
Mm.
the first woman councillor.
It certainly was. Like it's absolutely shocking. The state of play that there was. And even though women, like I always assumed that before I researched this exhibition, I always assumed that the major political parties hadn't put forward any female candidates, but they actually had from first local county council election 1942. There's a lady called Mary Deany who was put forward, but of course she was infanate, so she couldn't beat. She was up against the Blaney's. And then like with 74 and 79, we knew by all the major political parties. But it hasn't changed.
Mm.
And we're in a section of the exhibition too. We're asking visitors into the exhibition, male and female, what can we do to change it? How do we change this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just up to our older generation, it's up to the younger generation who are now able to vote to change this as well, because we can't do it without them, and we can't do it without people voting.
Yeah, yeah.
You
true.
know, you can't leave it to somebody else.
Well, the two uh, TDs from Donegal who've been women, Mary Coughlan and Cecilia Keaveney, both feature in the exhibition. And you also, just broadening it out, you also ask people to tell, or women to tell their own stories as well, and maybe that there's bits that you've missed out on, and
Mm.
that might not be included. So you're welcome to other stories.
We do. We're looking for we call them the extraordinary Donegal women. We do, it's not all doom and gloom. Um, we do feature stories of Donegal women, extraordinary women. Um, but we have a big wall, a big outline map of Donegal, and we're asking people to send us in their pictures of their mammy, their granny, their auntie, their single neighbour, to remember them and fill up as many Donegal women's faces on the map, because ordinary women's stories, they don't feature anywhere. They're so important. They raise families. They may have jobs. They live through this time when we had very little rights, very few rights, and they put up with a lot.
Yeah.
And they actually achieved a lot then. Like organizations you wouldn't believe, like the ICA, and most people presume the ICA is just arts and crafts and drinking tea, but they were groundbreakers. They fought for our rights and changed a lot of things that we had fought for. And another reason why we have our rights is we joined the EU, because
Yeah.
a lot of these laws are enacted against women, or lack of rights we had weren't unusual in other countries, but the longevity and severity of them in Ireland was very unusual, and it's only because we joined the EU that laws had to be changed. So we were very lucky.
Okay, well, we're continuing to make strides. Now, if someone wants to go along and look at this exhibition, and bear in mind, the entry is free. It's a powerful exhibition on women's lives here in Ireland, and in particular here in Donegal from 1922 through to 1980, on now at the Donegal County Museum, which is on the High Road in Letterkenny. Caroline, thank you very much.
Go Margaret. Thanks, John. Bye bye.